They are not dead yet. The Calgary Flames held on against the Minnesota Wild and gained some ground and crushed the playoff clinching dreams of the Wild right here on home ice.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, I am your host, Jess Belmosto, and thank you so much for joining me. Today, we are going to be recapping the Flames' big win against the Minnesota Wild Friday night at the Saddledome. But before we dive into all that, make sure you are subscribed to Locked On Flames wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. We are here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, your team every day. And let's just jump right into these difference makers because what a game it was. The fact that the Flames came out in the first period and had the lead was impressive, I will say. So thank you, Mikael Backlund. And it was good. I felt pretty comfortable, but still didn't fully trust them. So the Flames came out. The fourth line was peppering shots. They looked great. Obviously, Lomberg had a goal there in the third period, which was crazy. A lot of people are very excited, and I can't say I blame them. It's always good to see. Nazem Kadri tied his career high with 32 goals, and there's probably a good chance he sets a new career high with at least one more in these final 3 games of the season. I thought that he looked good, at both ends of the ice. And of course, speaking of both ends of the ice, Mikael Backlund obviously scored that opening goal, right? But I thought that he looked good defensively as well. I thought that it was one of his better defensive games of the season. He obviously is a great defensive center as well, but I thought that you could really see the effort from him last night, and you could tell that it kind of kept the game under control. The Flames kept Minnesota quiet with 18 shots, which was it's impressive considering the Wild scored 8 goals the other night, and the Flames are not necessarily a defensively heavy team. And just for them to be able to, I guess, like show control of the game, because it was a little concerning there late in the third period, but it was still, we will take it. The big thing here was, of course, Sharon Govich scoring. I hate to say he's heating up again, or heating up since it's so late in this season, but he has scored in relatively close intervals. And I guess it's better late than never at that point. But I will say that it should have happened earlier. I think that the big difference really was, I think, knowing how important this game was. I feel like, we talk about it a lot of the time on the show, but this team likes to play to prove people wrong. They have done that all season long. Huberdeau has done it with his nearly 30 goal season. Kadri has done it, obviously, with his 32 goals. We have seen Mackenzie Weegar do it. We have seen Dustin Wolf, obviously, even Dan Vladar. I think that this team just really enjoys proving people wrong, especially after the comments from just about all the fans out there, and the ones that maybe watched the same game as everyone else, suggesting that Zane Parekh should be in, and maybe Suniev. But Ryan Huska said at practice yesterday morning that it's not his job to manage Zane Parekh right now. He's only been with the team for 2 days. or been on the ice with them for 2 days. So it's not his job to manage and get him acclimated with the way that they play on ice. Okay. It's not necessarily inspiring when you hear something like that. I get why he might, say something like that. To be quite honest, it felt very Daryl Sutter-esque of Huska to say, and I never think that that's a good sign when we start going down that path. We've seen Huska be hard on call, or I would say single guys out this season, specifically Martin Pospisil, early on in the year, and that sometimes does it. But to me, when you just like squish that down to saying it's not my job, um, I wouldn't be really excited to like play for you, I guess. Like, I understand there's still, some hockey to play, but again, he would probably be the second best defenseman on that team. So it comes down to whatever the head coach wants. But I do think that should the Flames find themselves eliminated for game 82, they will play either of those guys. And then we will hear about how Rasmus Andersson has been dealing with some sort of shoulder and maybe like a knee injury all season long. One thing I did notice yesterday was at warmups, he was the first one off the ice. Does not participate in morning skate. Is only out there for a little bit of time during warmups. What is going on? Like, there is just the full lack of transparency here is really, I'm not even asking for transparency, just not even acknowledging that he's dealing with something is really strange. And I'm just not really a fan of it. But we'll have to see, maybe things start to look better Sunday against the Sharks. But coming up next, we will dive into the game and breaking it down by the numbers because it was a good numbers game for once for the Flames. Coming up next here on Locked On Flames.
Do you have trouble sleeping? If so, you're not alone. That used to be me, lacking rest, tossing and turning. I was late for meetings. I never felt like myself. That's until I found Bare Mattress. Bare Mattress and their sleep recovery technology helped me fall asleep faster as well as enjoy deeper sleeps. I felt like myself again, and you can too. Bare Mattress knows that every sleeper is different. That's why they have their sleep quiz on their website that finds you your perfect match. As a side sleeper, I matched with the Elite Hybrid mattress, and I've been telling everyone in my life they have to try Bare Mattress risk-free. You can sleep on your Bare Mattress up to 120 nights, and if you're not getting the best sleep of your life, you can get it refunded. They'll pick it up with absolutely no hassle. So go to bearmattress.com and use my promo code LOCKEDONNHL at checkout to get 40% off site-wide. This offer is not available anywhere else. You have to use my promo code on the very last page of checkout to get this discount. That's bearmattress.com. Use my promo code LOCKEDONNHL for 40% off site-wide. Bearmattress.com, promo code LOCKEDONNHL.
Thanks everyone for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you are subscribed wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. We're here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week. Your team every day, with a special Saturday edition of the show, of course. But let's talk about the numbers game. When breaking down last night's game, and number one, the Flames are now within 3 points of a wild card spot. They stopped Minnesota from clinching last night, and that should be enough. That should be more than enough momentum to help continue their push to the finish line. But I thought it was super interesting that they didn't take any penalties in the first or third period, but the second period, both teams had 2 penalties each. So special teams got quite the workout there uh, in the in the middle frame there, which I think is really funny. Just because, especially with the way the Flames power play has been, it has just been abysmal. It has been just so difficult to watch. It feels like we're watching the power play from the beginning of the season where you would like close your eyes or put your hands up to shield your eyes from watching it, or just honestly straight up changing the channel. But they did have a power play goal last night thanks to Kadri and assisted by Morgan Frost and Matt Coronato. Just a big game overall for the Flames, and this was a must win, and it feels good to have that under your belt. And I guess the Minnesota Wild did not necessarily have um, a good post game. So Michael Russo, who is a Minnesota Wild beat writer, said, so this was after the game had ended. The Minnesota Wild room is still closed. It was just players, but now the coaches just left their room well after the game and like a parade marched to the locker room, presumably to talk to the team. Yeah, I can only imagine how that feels because, you know, they were coming off such a huge offensive performance against the Sharks and being able to put up 8 goals against them. They probably assumed that they were going to be able to do something similar tonight in Calgary since the Flames have not been able to score goals consistently. But it was not the case. And then tonight the Wild play Vancouver. So I wonder if, these back-to-back losses or these back-to-back games will result in back-to-back losses, and maybe the Flames can make up a little bit of ground again tomorrow against the Sharks. But one thing I did notice was the shots on goal. The Flames obviously had, I think it ended up being, let me just pull this up here really quick. Sorry. It was 32 they outshot the Wild 32 to 18, which again, keeping the Wild under 20 shots is impressive. So I will give them that. Mikael Backlund had 5 shots on net, which honestly, again, pretty impressive for him. I feel like this was one of his better games of the season. Uh, just all around, I think that, there was a spark underneath this team that really was lit, and they wanted to keep everything going and not have their season end last night, because then you go out and you play these final 3 games and it's like, why? What's the point? But Matt Coronato did not score last night, but he did have 4 shots on net, and every single one of them was a quality shot. Now, I don't know if it's like the high quality, high danger, anything like that, but based on my eye test, he just got robbed. That's really that's really what it was. Great hands, quick release, accuracy obviously a little off, but the post, man, it just gets in the way every time. The team was relentless. And like I mentioned earlier, the fourth line and the third period were just peppering off shots. Same thing with Coronato and Backlund, obviously. I just feel like the team as a whole, which is what we asked for, you needed your primary and secondary scoring to step up, and you got that. Obviously, you had your goal from Kadri, who is a primary scorer. And then you have Backlund, Sharangovich, and Lomberg. 3 goals on the season for Ryan Lomberg, but, fourth liners aren't out there to necessarily score. I would have loved to have seen a little bit more maybe from, Huberto, or he almost had one. He had a shot. I can't remember if it was the first or second period, but he looked good. definitely didn't necessarily look as if he was out of place. He just, and it was his only shot. It was his only shot on goal that entire game. Okay. So yeah, I feel like we got to see a confident team for the first time in what felt like forever. And to be at home, the atmosphere was cool. It was fun. And hopefully people show up the same way on Sunday against the Sharks, because I feel like all of this could just be deflated with with a loss tomorrow against the Sharks at home, which would be pretty humiliating, to be entirely honest. I think that, you know, getting outplayed by them earlier, last week was enough. And hopefully this will that woke them up to step up their game, step up their performance, and we'll have to see. But coming up next, we are going to talk about building the momentum from Friday night and bringing it into Sunday's game, because they are going to need it here on Locked On Flames. Are you looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling full longer. Personally, I am a big fan of the no shell variety because they're just quick and easy to grab when I need to refuel on the go, or I'm just looking for a quick snack. Get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Thanks everyone for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you're following me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Jess Belmosto, and you will see lots of Calgary content while I am in this wonderful city until next Wednesday. So let's dive into the Shark Tank. What do the Flames need to do in order to continue and to have another successful game against one of the worst teams in the league? Well, they need to not just do it against San Jose, but we know that this team likes to just take things one game at a time, kind of chunk it out. I get it. San Jose just had a huge night against the Wild. Both of them, it was a high-scoring game. Celebrini got his first hat trick. Just putting up 7 goals as a team that, is still in a rebuilding, very much in a rebuilding phase, getting to where they need to be. But, that is impressive, especially against a team like the Wild, who have heavy hitters who were also able to put up a lot of goals, and ultimately they won 8-7 in overtime. But I wholeheartedly believe the Sharks resemble the Flames in terms of shaky scoring, because one night they will score 7 goals, and then the next night they'll score 1 goal. They just lost to the Oilers, and it's very the inconsistency, and maybe that's more of a tell for the Flames than it is the Sharks, who are actually like knee deep in the rebuild rather than tiptoeing into the lake, into the deep end. But I think that you're not going to see any lineup changes because you didn't see any against Minnesota after you lost. But it would feel like Ryan Huska. It would be very Ryan Huska-esque if he did change something in the lineup after winning. And play like heading into another solid, you're 3 points out with 3 games left. You have to figure something out. And they have to treat this game like a game 7. There is no other way around it. I think that the game against Minnesota really had that energy, and hopefully people show up to the Dome on Sunday for fan appreciation and appreciate the product on the ice. Give them that extra energy and, just give them something. I do think that Dustin Wolf is going to start again. I do not see why they would start Dan Vladar. I think that uh, maybe, I guess maybe to rest Dustin Wolf just one game before going up against Vegas 2 days later. I mean, I don't know. We know that the Flames are not afraid to ride a goalie into the ground, and especially a hot young goaltender like Dustin Wolf. But what we're seeing is the culmination of this season's efforts. It has been a very long season. To start the season 5-0 and just to have Jonathan Huberdeau playing his best hockey as a Flame, and then to have Dustin Wolf coming in and taking over, stepping up big time for goaltending, and to have young kids like Coronato and Zary coming into the lineup, and even Pelletier before he was traded, and making a difference and having an impact, like that all felt so good. And then once that started going really well, I think that maybe along the way we got kind of veered off the road from the continuing of a rebuild transitional phase. And I think it's just, if we keep playing like that and operating under that, this team is just going to be stuck where it is and where it has been. But going into tomorrow night, how do you capitalize off of this? You go out there and you want to see the same stuff that you saw. You want to see, you know, Backlund with 5 shots on net. You want to see Coronato with 4+. You want to see Jonathan Huberdeau. You want to see Kadri with more scoring chances. And ultimately, special teams is going to have to come up big. I think that was a big part of the success in the game against the Wild, and you're going to need to see it again, because I know that emotions do tend to run high with both these teams. So we will have to see what happens next, and we will be here for you on Locked On Flames, wherever you get your podcasts. And that'll do it for me on this Saturday edition of the show. Thank you all so much for hanging out, and I will see you all on Monday. Have a great weekend. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. We're here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week. Your team every day.